The city lights shimmered like distant stars as Adam hurried down the empty sidewalk. The cold night air bit at his face, but he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, on the $1 million deal he had just closed, the champagne waiting for him at home, and the luxurious penthouse that would soon be his. He was a young millionaire, successful beyond his years, and in a hurry to celebrate. But fate had other plans. Just as he turned a corner, his footsteps echoing against the silent buildings, he saw something that made him slow down. A woman sitting on the pavement, her frail body wrapped in a thin shawl. A baby, barely a few months old, lay curled in her lap, wrapped in a tattered cloth. The child's tiny fingers clutched at the air, searching for warmth, for comfort. Adam wasn't the type to stop for beggars. He had built his empire from nothing, clawing his way to the top without asking for help. To him, the world was a battlefield. You either fought to survive or got left behind. And yet, something about this woman, this child, made him hesitate. Maybe it was the way the woman's hollow eyes locked onto his, not with desperation, but with something deeper, something unspoken. Or maybe it was the unsettling contrast between his tailored suit and her torn clothes, between his overflowing wealth and her empty hands. He forced himself to look away. This wasn't his problem. He had more important things to do. But as he took another step, the baby let out a soft whimper, a sound so small, so fragile, that it cut through the night like a whisper of fate. Adam's feet stopped moving. A war raged inside him. He could keep walking, pretend he never saw them, go home to his world of luxury, or he could do something, anything to help. For the first time in years, Adam felt uncertain. He had built his life on logic, on numbers and deals, but standing there on the cold street, looking at a mother and child who had nothing, logic failed him. He took a deep breath and turned back. And that's when the woman spoke, just 3 words, barely a whisper. But those 3 words changed everything. Adam stood frozen, the woman's voice barely audible over the distant hum of the city. 3 words, soft, fragile, but heavy enough to stop his breath. Please save him. His eyes dropped to the baby, its tiny chest rising and falling unevenly. The mother's fingers trembled as she gently stroked the child's forehead. There was no pleading in her eyes, no expectation, just a quiet, desperate hope that someone, anyone, would listen. Adam felt an uneasy twist in his stomach. He wasn't the kind of man who got involved in strangers' problems. His life was built on hard work, deals, and decisions that made sense. This made no sense. He could throw a few bills at her, walk away, and forget all of this by morning. That's what his old self would have done. But something wouldn't let him move. What's wrong with him? Adam asked, his voice coming out colder than he intended. The woman hesitated, her eyes searching his face. He's sick. I tried to get help. She swallowed hard. But no one stops. No one listens. Adam glanced around. The street was quiet, empty except for the occasional car passing by. How long had she been sitting here, hoping someone would notice? How many people had walked past without a second glance? His hands tightened into fists. He wasn't sure if it was frustration at the world's indifference or something deeper, something he didn't want to admit. You should take him to a hospital, he said, though he already knew the answer. The woman gave a bitter smile. They don't treat people like us unless we have money. Adam exhaled sharply. He could walk away, go back to his world of expensive suits and penthouse celebrations. But for the first time in years, he found himself at a crossroads. A part of him screamed that this wasn't his fight. But another part, one he had long ignored, whispered something different. He took out his wallet, pulling out a few large bills. Here, this should be enough for a doctor. The woman looked at the money but didn't move to take it. Her fingers clutched the baby tighter. It's not just money, she said. I need someone to help me. Adam felt a flicker of something unfamiliar, hesitation mixed with a strange sense of responsibility. He had spent his life chasing wealth, proving himself in boardrooms, winning battles that mattered only on paper. But now, standing before a mother fighting to keep her child alive, he realized something. Some battles weren't fought with money. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Come with me. I'll take you. The woman's eyes widened slightly, as if she hadn't expected him to say that. For a moment, she just stared at him, her expression unreadable. Then slowly, she nodded. Whatever happened next, he couldn't turn back now. The drive was silent, except for the faint sound of the baby's uneven breathing. Adam stole a glance at the woman. Her face was pale, exhaustion evident in her eyes. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated before answering. "Mira." Adam nodded. He wasn't sure what to say next. Minutes later, they arrived at the hospital. Adam walked inside with Mira, his presence instantly drawing attention. The nurses and staff, who had been indifferent to Mira before, suddenly scrambled to assist. "Sir, how can we help you?" a nurse asked, her tone polite, almost eager. Adam glanced at Mira, then back at the nurse. "This baby needs treatment. Now." The staff didn't ask questions. They whisked the baby away, and for the first time, Adam saw Mira's shoulders relax, just a little. Hours passed. Adam stayed, even though he had no reason to. He watched Mira as she sat in the waiting area, staring at the floor, lost in thought. "You didn't have to stay," she said quietly. Adam shrugged. "I wanted to make sure he was okay." Mira nodded but didn't say anything else. The doctor finally emerged. Mira stood up instantly, eyes wide with fear and hope. "He's weak, but stable for now," the doctor said. "We'll need to run more tests, but it's good that you brought him in when you did." Mira let out a shaky breath, her hands pressed together as if in silent prayer. Adam felt something loosen in his chest, a relief he didn't expect. But just as he thought the worst was over, the doctor turned to Mira with a frown. "There's something else," he said. "We need to talk." Adam saw the fear return to Mira's eyes. And in that moment, he knew this wasn't over. Not yet. Mira's hands clenched together as she took a shaky breath. The doctor's expression was calm but serious, and Adam could see the tension in Mira's body. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The doctor sighed, glancing at Adam before turning back to her. "Your son's condition is more complicated than we initially thought. He's severely malnourished, and his immune system is weak. He'll recover with treatment, but..." He hesitated. "There's something else." Mira's fingers gripped the edge of her shawl. "What else?" The doctor glanced at the chart in his hands. "We ran some routine tests. His blood work shows irregularities. Have you ever taken him for a proper medical checkup before?" Mira shook her head. "I never had the money." Adam watched as the doctor's face softened. "I understand. But we need to do further tests. There's a possibility he has a genetic condition, something that could require long-term treatment." Mira's breath hitched. Her eyes flickered toward the hallway where her baby was resting. Adam could see the silent panic creeping into her expression. "How much will it cost?" she asked, her voice already carrying the weight of an answer she knew she wouldn't be able to afford. The doctor hesitated before saying, "It won't be cheap, but we'll do everything we can to assist you." Mira lowered her head, her shoulders trembling. Adam could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on both of them. She had done everything she could to keep her child alive, and now, even after finding help, the struggle wasn't over. Adam had spent his entire life making decisions based on numbers, profit, loss, risk. But tonight, nothing about this felt like a business decision. Without thinking, he turned to the doctor. "I'll cover the costs, whatever he needs." Mira's head snapped up. "What?" Adam nodded. "Just make sure he gets the best treatment." Mira's lips parted as if she wanted to argue, but no words came. Tears welled in her eyes, but she quickly looked away, as if afraid to show too much emotion. The doctor gave a small nod. "Understood. We'll begin additional tests immediately." As the doctor walked away, Mira turned to Adam, her voice unsteady. "Why? Why are you doing this?" Adam took a deep breath. He didn't have an answer that made sense, at least not in the way he was used to. But looking at Mira, at the way she had fought to keep her child safe despite having nothing, he realized something. "I don't know," he admitted, "but maybe because someone should." Mira wiped at her eyes, nodding slowly. "Thank you," she whispered. Adam only nodded back. Over the next few days, Adam found himself coming back to the hospital, checking in on Mira and her baby. He had told himself it was just to make sure everything was handled, that he was simply following through on what he had started. But deep down, he knew it was more than that. Adam had always believed that success was a result of effort alone. But now, he realized that sometimes life didn't play fair. Some people fought just as hard, maybe even harder, than he ever had. But they weren't given the same chances. When the baby was finally stable and ready to leave the hospital, Adam found himself standing outside with Mira, unsure of what came next. "Where will you go?" he asked. Mira looked down at her baby, gently adjusting the blanket around him. "I don't know. I'll find something. I always do." Adam hesitated. He had spent his whole life building an empire, making money that he barely knew what to do with. But now, for the first time, he saw a way to use it for something more. "There's an apartment complex I own," he said after a moment. "I can get you a place there, somewhere safe for you and the baby." Mira's eyes widened. "Adam, you've done it now." "I want to," he interrupted. "Let me help." Mira stared at him for a long moment before finally nodding, her eyes filled with gratitude. As Adam watched her walk away, carrying her son toward a future that wasn't as hopeless as before, he felt something shift inside him. For years, he had chased wealth, thinking that success meant reaching the top alone. But tonight, he had learned something different. Sometimes, true success wasn't about how much you earned. It was about what you did with it.